Part 3. Serpent, Chapter 1. After the incident with Jordan and the immediate fallout, Dr. Mike Sonenburg started to become more and more suspicious of Fleet Command's interest in the case. More importantly to him, Fleet Command didn't seem interested in what had actually happened to Jordan or what the risk to other personnel might have been. Mike conducted tests on everyone he could who had been exposed to Jordan to see if there was any sign of infectious disease, but had come up with none. He tried to look over Jordan's 201 file to get a history of where the soldier had been stationed prior to coming to the Mars orbital outpost, but all records of Jordan disappeared at the same time that the Fleet Command took the body. "This is the job of an impartial Fleet Command coroner," Dr. Sonenburg, a camouflage fatigue-clad major, had informed him when they were taking Jordan's body away. "Can you at least tell me the name of the doctor who is going to do the autopsy? You might have some questions for me," Mike had argued, but the major didn't want him to have anything more to do with the case. And eventually, he turned his attention to a set of orders that had arrived for him. In 2 days, a shuttle would be taking him to an outbound carrier, the Pennsylvania. Where it was going exactly, the orders would not elaborate, but only said that he would be told more once he was aboard the carrier. "Be careful," Lieutenant Wells had said just before Mike pulled himself across the docking tube to the shuttle. "At least you're getting away from here for a while." "I just wish they could tell me where I was going," Mike said. The shuttle took him out of Mars orbit and traveled through empty space for over an hour before they reached the rendezvous point with the Pennsylvania. As always, when he looked through the small viewport next to his seat, Mike was in awe of the size of one of the fleet's carriers. He had been on them before, but the sight of one of them from the outside never got old. Each carrier had 2 enormous flight decks, each 500 meters in length, one on top of and one underneath the carrier's main fuselage. At the front of the enormous interplanetary craft was the bridge section, and at the back were 12 gigantic propulsion cones, the largest ones being the size of Olympic swimming pools. The carrier was powered by controlled atomic explosions inside the cones that propelled the craft through the black void. Its top tested speed was still unknown because to go faster it needed more space. And with the armistice with the Tritons, any carrier would reach the boundaries of Republic space before it could reach top speeds. And on an interplanetary trip, the carriers had to use just as much distance to slow down as they did to speed up. There were at least 70 other passengers on the shuttle, a few technicians and a handful of admin personnel, but the vast majority were infantrymen from one of the forts down on the surface of Mars. Mike guessed it was a company-sized unit. Almost all of them were clad in the red, pink, and white computer blotch pattern that soldiers assigned to Mars wore. Most of them were very young and enlisted and seemed very excited. "We're going to the belt, man, the DMZ," he overheard one of them saying. From the patches they wore on their left shoulders, Mike could see they were from the 3rd Light Infantry Division. That was generally the type of soldier that was picked to patrol the asteroids at the very edge of Republic space or man one of the static guard posts. Chances were none of them, other than some of the senior enlisted or officers among them, had ever been out that far. A couple of the senior enlisted men had a unit patch on their right shoulder, meaning they had been in combat in that unit. Most likely the Philosian War or one of the smaller episodes that had taken place over the last dozen years that fell short of full-blown war. When Mike floated down to the lower level to get something to eat from one of the vending machines, he saw about 2 squads of Rangers. They wore coal-black fatigues and tan berets with a unit flash pinned on. They were less boisterous than the infantrymen on the upper level, keeping to themselves and laughing at the occasional inside joke. "This is your crew chief of the shuttlecraft Horizon," a voice said over the cabin PA. "Please return to your seats and strap in. We will be docking momentarily." Mike looked out the window next to his seat and saw some of the other spacecraft that made up their convoy from Mars enter the Pennsylvania's approach pattern. There were 2 other shuttles, an RCC, 2 F-100 fighters serving as escort, as well as a deep space surveillance flyer. He could also see a few of the fighters flying combat air patrol around the massive carrier. His view out the window shifted as the shuttle banked and turned. The RCC broke away from the convoy to land on the upper flight deck, while the shuttles flew under the carrier to a point about 1/3 of the way from the rear of the carrier. The shuttle came up alongside a section of the carrier's fuselage that lowered a rectangular docking port. After a smooth stop and a series of dull metallic thuds from the airlock closing and sealing, everyone rose from their seats. Some of the younger soldiers bumped into one another and fumbled with their carry-on bags in the zero-G environment, while the experienced passengers deplaned more smoothly. Mike floated with his carry-on bag along with the rest of them through the airlock and then up a ladder that brought them gradually from weightlessness to 1G thanks to the artificial gravity decks of the carrier. Once up the ladder, one of 3 that the passengers of the shuttle were using, they emerged into a wide room where sailors were standing by with flashboards to help sort everyone out and point them in the right direction. The first sergeant of the infantry company had his men fall into formation so he could get a head count before they boarded the 3-car tram that waited at the other end of the room. "Lieutenant Sonenburg?" Mike turned to face the speaker who'd called his name. A sailor in blue fatigues with a flashboard under his arm approached him through the milling crowd. "Sir, if you'd follow me." The sailor led him through a hatch, down a narrow corridor and around the corner to an elevator that took them up to one of the upper decks. They marched down another corridor, this one much wider and better lit, past an expansive mess hall and to a tram dock among a cluster of fleet officers and enlisted men, most of them in blue fatigues and 1 or 2 in dark green dress uniforms. "So how was your flight, sir?" Mike's escort asked. "Oh, it was fine. Everything was fine." "Adjusting to the gravity okay?" "Yes, I spent extra time in the cylinder back at Mars Oscar 1 once I got my orders to come here." "Is this your first time on a carrier, sir?" "Oh no, I was on a carrier once before, but I'm always very impressed." After a 90-second tram ride, the sailor led Mike off the platform, down another corridor to a bank of elevators. There were 3 MPs with holstered rail pistols and blue fatigues standing guard. One of them, seated at a desk, looked at the sailor's flashboard, then up at Mike. "ID, please, sir." Mike dug out his military ID card, and a moment later they were in an elevator going up. When the door slid open, Mike saw they were at the bridge of the carrier. Large window panes lined the 3 walls that weren't taken up by the elevators. Above the windows was an expansive display screen that showed a detailed map of the solar system between Mars and the asteroid belt. Numbers and various icons, some flickering and some rapidly changing, were spread out across the map. All around the room were control stations with sailors in tan short-sleeved uniforms working over glowing displays and talking over headsets. Mike's escort led him to the front of the bridge, where an older man with gold eagles on his shoulders designating him a captain. He was in the middle of it, talking to 3 junior officers about the arrival times of the other craft in their group. "Has anyone heard from Casey's XO?" the captain asked. "It's Billings, right?" "No, sir," a lieutenant junior grade with a closely shaved scalp responded. "His new XO is," he looked at the flashboard he was holding, "Bowman is the new XO. When someone gets a hold of Bowman, let him know it's not up to us to chase him down. We should have gotten their ETA by now." The captain turned and faced Mike and his sailor escort. "Sir, Lieutenant Sonenburg reporting for duty," Mike said, coming to attention and rendering a salute. The captain returned it casually and took the flashboard from the sailor. "Dr. Mike Sonenburg," he said, looking at the board. "Education, MD, Linsom Medical School. Residency, Mayo Graduate School of Medicine. Completed combat trauma school. Top of your class honor graduate of the vacuum and microgravity surgical school. Spent the last 14 months at Mars Oscar 1 clinic. He looked up from the flashboard. This is very impressive. I'm Admiral Victor Gimber, by the way. You just might have what we're looking for. You seem like you're not afraid of taking risks. I guess not, sir. You're not afraid of Tritons, are you? Sir, if everything goes right, you're going to help us learn a lot about them.